Hello there, everybody. We just have a few more people that are currently logging on, but they'll be able to catch up. We'll get started. Um, Welcome to developing, implementing, and advancing a corporate wellness strategy. That's what our webinar is today. If along the way you have any questions or concerns, please make sure that you type them in along the way. If it seems appropriate at the time to answer the question, I absolutely will do so. If not, I will answer it at the end, or I'll contact you after the webinar is completed and answer the question if it's something that I just really don't think matches the depth of what we're trying to do here today. So I'm Dr. Christopher Small. I'm the owner, clinic director, and family wellness chiropractor at Clarity Chiropractic in Pickering, Ontario. We're just outside of Toronto, suburb of Toronto, actually. I have an athletic therapy company and athletic training company called Gridiron Medical that I do kind of on the side. It's designed to help or to work with youth sports teams, helping with their field coverage and their injury management situations. In my day-to-day gig, I help families keep their spine and nervous systems healthy. That's what I do day in and day out in the office, getting hands on people and really making sure they're as healthy as possible. But what we're here today for is related to my health outreach program called Blueprint Health. It's a health program that helps organizations or individuals really be able to make smart, informed decisions about their health. It was designed to implement for both individuals, families, corporate organizations, and it really does just simplify everybody's health decisions and ability to make informed decisions about their health. So here's the reality. Companies that organize or that implement a health or wellness program have a 78% increase in their employee health. 78%, that's just insurmountable by anything else. There's nothing else that we can really do that's going to have such a big bang for our buck. And you can measure health in a whole lot of different ways, but depending on which way you look at it, it might be 50%, it might be 78%, it might be 25%. But the reality is that you have the opportunity to have a huge amount of input into the health of the people you work with. Now, if we look at the dollars and cents, because as business owners and as managers, that's a big piece of the puzzle. And for every dollar invested into health and wellness programs, we get an average of $3.27 as a return on investment. It's a 327% return on investment. There aren't many things out there that can really give us that much bang for our buck, if you will. And corporate wellness programs are actually really inexpensive to implement when you do them right. And it comes back to 3.27 fold. The statistics and the research is just out there to support this. Here is a ginormous number: 28% reduction in sick days and sick leave. That's more than a day a week you're getting out of. Imagine if you took every employee in your office and got them to work at no additional cost, actually cost you less money because you're putting less money into your insurance programs and things of that nature. Got an entire extra day of work out of them at the same level quality they do the rest of the time, right? And let's think about this. Let's say somebody's sick on a Wednesday, right? They call in sick Wednesday morning. They're not able to get in. We want them to be home and healthy and taking care of themselves. That's great. But how productive do you think they really were on Tuesday, right? They were getting sick. They were fighting it off, They get back Thursday, and let's forget about the interference of everyone. Oh, how are you feeling today? You doing any better? They're really not going to be at 100%. So the reality is we have a huge amount of opportunity to increase our productivity. We're leaving so much on the table by not implementing plans, right? In the U.S., I couldn't find equivalent statistics for Canada, but we can make some assumptions there. We have a $1.8 trillion loss due to productivity because of sickness and disease and people not being well. If we make our best guesses, we usually go a 10%, about 10% difference between Canada and the U.S. That's 180 billion Canadian dollars a year lost due to productivity. And that's because people are just becoming less healthy. They're becoming more sick and they're suffering more and more. And it's really becoming an epidemic in our world. So a bit about me. I've spent my entire adult life learning about about what health truly is, how to help create it in the body, and how to help coach others to develop this within themselves. I've had the fortune of working with countless groups, corporations, and organizations. Here's a list of just some of them that I've done something with at some level. I've been able to share stages with award-winning executives, professional and Olympic athletes. Here's the reality, is that if it relates to health or wellness, I've probably been involved at some level. It might be in speaking, it might be doing a health screen, it might be helping organize what's going on, but I'm in a great position to help share with you and lead you into taking your organization to the next level when it comes to their health and wellness programs. Because here's the reality, I don't think any of us would really argue that we would like to have healthier and more engaged employees. Even if you didn't care about the well-being of your team, which I know you all do, even if all you cared about was the profit column on your balance sheet, you want this. We looked at the statistics earlier. We look at the increase in productivity. We look at the return on investment. We look at all these things, and there's no question that having a healthy, engaged workforce is better for us. Now, like I said, I know we all want the best for our team, but even if you didn't care that, we want vibrant, we want healthy, we want all these things. Because the reality is somebody's not in the office. I don't know about you, but I don't want this for any of my team. I don't want them for any of my assistants. I don't want them for any of my trainers. I don't want them for any of the other docs in my office. I don't want this for people. When somebody's off for the day, I want them out enjoying life. I want them out taking a hike. I want them on vacation with their family. I want them to just take a mental health day so they can rejuvenate and revitalize and come back and be better. Because we all want a workforce that looks like this. This is what we want when we go into a corporate corporate boardroom for a meeting. I'd love to walk into a room and that's what I see when I go to consult with an organization about what they're looking for in their programs. But you got to ask yourself the question about what it is you want. Do you want people that are looking like this? Do we want teams that are looking like this, or do we want people being lethargic and tired when they're at their meeting Monday morning? The reality is it just is going to come down to what you're willing to invest to make this happen. What level of commitment are you willing to make to support this situation? All right. So here's what today is not. I like to really play out what things are and what they're not going to be on the day. And it's not going to be a play-by-play. It's not going to be a step-by-step process. The reality is we cannot, with all the different variables available, we can't just lay out a ABCD program. Every organization is different, whether it be the size of the organization, whether it be the size of the organization, the structure, the goals, and the values, of everybody involved, whether it be management, whether it be the executives, whether it be the team. We can't just plug and play a program. We need to really look at all these different things. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to bridge the gap between what you want and what you value for your team and what you're actually doing, because we want to ensure that you have as little incongruency in your life as possible. There's a great quote I've heard out there, and that the level of destruction in your life, and you can make that your life, your organization, your business, whatever it takes, is directly proportional to the amount of incongruency in your life. And that's just the way it is. There's no getting around this fact. All right, so first we know what it is, what today is not, but we need to really understand what a corporate wellness program is, or strategy. Just as an aside, I like the corporate wellness strategy or program. I'm going to use different interchangeable terms. Could be a corporate wellness program, be a health program. They're for the sake of today, they're all about the same. So what we need to do is we need to understand what a corporate wellness strategy is. And we need to understand what it is not. Now, I talked about what today's talk isn't, but we need to understand what that corporate wellness strategy is not. Once we do this, it's fairly simple to implement. We need to look at the variables to consider in our design. We need the variables to consider in implementation. Once we have these answers, what we can do is now we can plug and play. Now we can look at it, what it is we really want and want to advance and develop and get out of our team. Okay. Now, we need to understand a few things. If we want to understand a health program or what wellness is, we need to understand what those terms are. So I always like to define the terms and really make sure we're all talking about the same thing when we're doing this. Now, I don't typically speak about corporate wellness programs. What I'm usually doing is running a corporate wellness program. So I'm going to try to stay on track and just give you what you need for this, because I'm usually talking about health or how to implement healthy strategies in your life. The topics we cover in these programs. So I'll do my best to be brief and get on track, but, because I could go on all day about these things. But we can't truly understand what these programs are without understanding the basics of health. Here it is broken down in its simple terms. Health is appropriately adapting to stress. I repeat, health is appropriately adapting to stress. That is it. That's it. Stress isn't the problem. Symptoms aren't the problem. The problem isn't somebody sick and off. It's that they weren't able to adapt to the stresses around them. That is what the problem is. Symptoms are not the problem. It's how we adapt to the problem that it goes. Just like anything else in business, if we have a problem in the day, the problem isn't the problem. It's how we respond to it. It's how the problem was created so that we can get where we want. We've lived to think that if we feel good, we are healthy. If we aren't, we aren't. The problem with this is that the body is amazing, and it will do the exact right thing given the environment and situation we put it in every single time. We all have this amazing healing ability, and we deserve to optimize this health across the board. Your decision as an employer is what level of involvement you want to have. So we need to address and understand what these stresses are. And I don't just mean the emotional stresses, the mental stresses that we talk about. I mean all stresses when we look at physical, emotional, and chemical. Excuse me, because our body responds the same to all of them. Whether it's a physical stress, like something in the office, it might be the way we sit at our desk, our ergonomics, it might be how we lift and carry things. These are the physical stresses, and it's how we adapt to them. You hear about that person that blows out their back because they went to go pick up a pencil off the ground. The problem wasn't the stress, it's that the body was in a situation that it wasn't able to adapt to the stress properly. When we look at emotional stresses, are we giving people the amount of time to vent and get the time off and relax and rejuvenate as they need? Chemical stresses. What's the air quality in the office? What kind of toxins are you bringing into the office on a daily basis? That might be an environment where there's a lot of pollutants in the air. An environmental type situation is at the extreme, but it could be: do you have good quality air filters in the office? Do you have are you providing garbage, food and junk food in your vending machines? These are all the different things that happen. And it's how you adapt to them that matter. I'm going to give you an example of a cold. When somebody has a cold, it sucks. We have all been there. You get congested. You're lethargic and tired. You lose your appetite. You might have a fever. And believe me, I do not say for a second that it doesn't suck, but that the problem isn't those symptoms. It's that their body wasn't adapted to the virus in the first place, because once the body identified it was unable to adapt to the situation, it did the exact right thing. It got congested to flush the virus out of the sinuses. It created a fever so those viruses couldn't replicate in that environment. It made you tired and lethargic because it wants to conserve energy and telling you to rest so it can fight it off. It makes you not hungry because digestion takes a lot of energy and the body's telling you to rest and relax. See, we can't control the end result. We can't control whether or not you have, or what happens once you have a cold. What we can control is the process so that you are as healthy as possible to fight off the cold. That is what health really is adapting to these stresses properly. Because once the body realizes it couldn't adapt to that cold properly, it's doing the exact right thing. That's just the reality of everything. So, I'm going to propose a bit of a unique idea about how to look at health or how to make healthy decisions. And what that is we need to appreciate what we can control in our health. You can't control if you step off a curb and a bus comes by and hits you. You might want to look both ways before you cross the road, but you can't control that. You can't control if you get hit by lightning. You can't control if you're born with a genetic disease, but you can control certain aspects in your health. And the reality is that what we need to do is we need to identify what the requirements of our health are. Once we identify these requirements, all we have to do is implement specific strategies to fulfill them. It's really that simple. And the program Blueprint Health that I developed really addresses all of these. So I'm going to go over what they are very superficially. And the first one is it's our rest and recovery, being able to recharge and rejuvenate. It's our food and nutrition. It's what we put into our body. It's the fuel we look at. It's our movement and exercise. And I specifically say movement and exercise because it's not just about your exercise. It's about how you move. It's about how you sit. It's about all those different things. We need to think positively. We need to have a positive outlook in our life, and we need to ensure that our body is in proper alignment, because when it's out of alignment, it's just not going to work properly. So that's what Blueprint Health is. It's designed to address these five controllable aspects of your health. And when you're implementing a corporate wellness program, what you get to do is you get to look at what it is you want to talk about. Do you want to have a program on one aspect of this? Do you want to look at a generic topic and how each of these aspects can get into it and talk about it? And that's why, again, we can't just give you a plug and play model. So the 5 aspects of Blueprint Health are Blueprint Align, Blueprint Move, Blueprint Fuel, Blueprint Recover, and Blueprint Love. So I'm going to get into each of these a little bit, not much detail, but for our food or for our fuel, Blueprint Fuel, we need essential fats and proteins. We need micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals, and we need to do all of this while limiting the toxicity being put into our body. And are you encouraging healthy eating in your office, right? Are you having sandwiches on white bread and junk food in the vending machines? Or are you having fruit available? Are you having water and fruit juices instead of pop available? What are you having at your meetings? What are you doing to run and educate and run programs? I know there's different organization. I know Volkswagen, however it's pronounced. They have an actual, a chef on site where they have a lot better programs available. It's a great option. I remember I went to there to do a health screening and a health doc, and I was simply blown away by the quality of cafeteria food that they had. It was fantastic, right? If we look at Blueprint Love, that is our mindset. That's that positive thinking. And the requirements there, you have to love yourself, you have to love others, and you have to love life. And I'm not going to get into the specific aspects of it, but we need to have this. We need our employees to be coming in with passion and purpose every day. People need to have this. Do you have quiet spaces available? Do you have options for meditation or even venting, right? Does somebody feel they can come to you, get some stuff off their chest, and then walk away and go work at what it is? People need to have this encouraging environment. I know there's a great organization near me, and I'm really good friends with the people that run it, and they have a quiet room, right? People can go take a nap if they need to, and people aren't judged for this. They know that if they work hard, they hire the right people, they're going to work hard and get what they need. That's just the reality of the story. Right? There's Blueprint Move. This is our exercise and movement, right? We need to be strong, mobile, fast. We need to lift heavy things. We need to get our heart rate going. We need to be mobile. But how do you allow this and work this into it? Do you have a sit and stand stations available to people, especially people that have had problems? Do you allow them to get up and move around, or do you harp on them for sitting at the desk? If you're in a call center, do you allow them to take personal breaks where they can just get up and go get a glass of water so they can move? Right? Do you have meetings where you're walking? You look at someone as famous as Steve Jobs. Now, I don't know if Steve Jobs did it on purpose as part of his health and wellness strategy, but he was famous for having walking meetings. Some of his biggest meetings and some of the things where things came up in his ideas or new strategies for Apple or Pixar were done while they're walking around. Have any of you ever actually scheduled this? You might end up having a meeting while you happen to walk. But if you start building these things in, what's the situation? There's a great organization here in Pickering called Search Engine People. They really are truly amazing. They have networked computers on their treadmills so that anybody in their organization, while they're working away, can go move while they're working away. It's amazing. You look at it. How do you get into these things? There's so many different options. right? Blueprint Recover. This is your rest and relaxation because we need to rest and recover. We need to shut our brains down once in a while. And are you allowing your team to do this? Are you on them 24/7? Are you on their day off getting on them because they didn't reply to your email fast enough because they slept until 10 o'clock, right? Are you denying them time they need so they can get everything done? And now, is this directly or indirectly? Because your policies might say something, but what is it you actually do and how does it actually implement along the way? Finally, we have Blueprint Align. This is what I deal with in my office every single day. This is making sure that your body's in proper alignment, because if the brain and body cannot communicate at 100% efficiency, you can't function at your best, regardless of anything else. Now, things you can do in your office is you might have people come in and do education seminars. You might have people come in and do, postural screening or ergonomic screenings. What are you offering them equipment-wise? Are you doing posture checks? There's so many different options that you can get into there. Okay, so these are all the different aspects we can address and look at. But let's start looking at the corporate wellness programs themselves, right? So how do we treat these programs? Just like in our personal health, we push them to the back burner. We put them back. We become too busy to spend our lunchtime at a lunch and learn, or our business time on it. Who pays employees to go learn about being healthier? Probably not many of you, right? And if you do, that's amazing. We worry about it once they're broken. Once we find out people aren't happy, once we find out people aren't doing what they need, we might start implementing something. Or if people come to us asking for it, that's when we start doing it. Once it affects our bottom line, whether that bottom line being the health of our employees, the bottom line being the actual bottom line, the financials, because this is the way we just all look at our health as on average. And what we're trying to do is really change this so that we put it to the forefront. So we're not fixing broken employees. What we're doing is we're maximizing health and we're getting them better to the next level. I know some employees, there's a great insurance company out in my way, and what they do is they're actually in the process of taking their crew, or their team, to the Grand Canyon for a hike, and they were working on this. I think it's for like 12 or 18 months where they're coming in. They have workouts and plans and sessions so that they can do it all. And this is all just different things you can do to create it. So the question really comes down to, what are your values around employee health? Now, there's no right or wrong to this. It's just you need to be honest. If your value in your organization is that it's none of my business about my employees' health, they get paid to be here from 9 to 5. I give them their 15-minute breaks in their lunch hour or whatever the requirements are in your jurisdiction. That's okay. That's awesome. But you can't start pretending that you're running a corporate health program. You need to be honest about it. Don't try to tell your employees you care about their health and that's one of your most important priorities if it's not. It's okay that it's not. It's your organization. It's your team. Do whatever you want, but be honest about it, right? But if you want them to be at their best, if you want to inspire your team to be at their very best, you need to invest. It's just that simple. You need to look at what your values are and make sure your values are in alignment with your strategies and the strategies that you're putting in. So, what a corporate wellness strategy is not. A corporate wellness strategy is not simply health and safety. Health and safety is extremely important, but it's not the same thing. Health and safety is about operating in a safe manner. It's making sure people know how to lift properly, that they're following their WHMIS protocols or whatever the case may be. It's making sure people don't get injured. It's making sure you have an AED available when necessary, or an EpiPen. It's making sure that once there's a fire, if there's a fire, everybody gets out safely. It is super important, but it is not a wellness strategy. It doesn't mean you can't integrate the concepts, but they're not the same thing. There's a great, it's called Logistics in Motion and Aspect. I can't remember what the secondary part is. There's some big warehouses out in my area as well. And they had a great guy coming in. What he did was he actually made it a point to separate their health and wellness program from their health and safety program. And it was something he was really adamant about. And I got to do some work with them. And it was really cool to see how they were separating those things. Now, it also is simply not providing insurance when things go wrong. Remember, we talked about this earlier. Health is not fixing a problem. Health is creating health, right? It builds a lot of value having insurance. It does all these great things, but it does not create health. If we look at some data, and I believe these are US data again, 95% of insurance is spent on treating sickness and disease. 5% or less is spent on prevention. So it really is not the same thing as a health and wellness program. All right. So it is not a health and safety program. It is not providing third-party insurance. But now that we know what it is not, what is it? Anything that helps your team create and improve health. Not something that simply moves them away from sickness, but anything that helps your team create and improve health. Anything that matches these principles is a health program. It's a corporate wellness strategy. It's a corporate wellness program, whatever you want to call it. The question comes down to how much of an impact is it? How good is it? What is it actually building within your team? Is it creating all these things that you want? That's the question. So what we need to look at is, what are your goals, right? Just like everything else, we have budget goals, we have sales goals, we have hiring goals, we have goals in everything in our organization. But what are your goals in relation to a health and wellness strategy? Is it engagement? We know that with companies that are engaged. So if we look at one company that, or you have even a single company where some of the employees are engaged in their wellness programs and others are not. The ones that are engaged have a 70% decrease in sick days. 70% of those that get engaged in the programs. Right? Again, that's just mind-blowing to me, right? Is your goal to maximize the bottom line? That's okay too. Remember, I talked about, I don't care what your goals are. What I care about is how it all works together. Is it to create value for your employees, right? If you're in a competitive place where you're fighting for the best employees, is your health program going to create value so people want to come work with you? Is it your productivity? We talked about the return on investment. We talked about the loss of sick days. We talked about the productivity earlier. Statistically, is that your goal? Awesome. Personally, I think what the goal should be is related to your health. Right? Getting the healthiest employees, because we know it's going to do everything else. Now, I'm a health practitioner. My passion in life is about health. So that's where my goals are and what I think everybody should be. But I don't care what your goals are. What I care about is that your goals have a strategy and a plan to get you there. Okay. So if your goals and strategies are not matching, we're incongruent. So we got to look at what those aspects are. And we know everything comes down to some sort of investment, and that's your time, effort, and money. And if you're incongruent in these areas, you're going to have problems. So what we need to look at is, what's your investment? What are you investing now? What are you willing to invest, right? Are you wanting to do more? Is it a financial investment? Is it a time investment? Is it an effort investment? All these things are going to come into play about what the best strategy for your organization is, okay? And again, I can't, I know you guys know this, but it comes down to time, effort, and money. All right. So you got to look at what your commitment is. What are you willing to do, right? Are you willing to incentivize the program? Are you willing to wait it out? There was an organization I worked with once, and they were a big warehouse, and they had a lot of problems with engagement, and they were trying to do different things, including a health and wellness program. So this isn't directly a health and wellness program, but it relates to this example. So they had this huge barbecue, and they have hundreds of employees. So this was a giant thing, and they said, "Come on up, have as many hot dogs and hamburgers as you want." And the guy that I dealt with, who was in charge of all this, had had employees coming up to him, literally being like, so who's counting? And he's like, what do you mean? Who's counting how many burgers we're taking? Nobody is. We're just cooking them up. You guys go up, enjoy as much as you want. He goes, I get you. You're trying to count who's taking advantage of the program so that you guys can hold it against us later on. And this is the mindset of some organizations. So if you're in an organization that has this little engagement or this much animosity between management and the team, you might need to wait it out. And you might have to put this into play for weeks, months, or years before it really gets rolling, right? Are you going to incentivize the program? Are you going to, give people the opportunity? Like, are they going to get time off to go do a health and wellness retreat? Who knows? But what you've got to understand and what you must do is really understand what your commitment to the program is, and wait it out until you get where you want to be, until you're able to put it in there. It might be you don't have the financial resources to do what you want to do now, but you need to put together a plan to do all this. So what are the different things you can implement, right? You can implement a general health environment, right? You could just make it a place where it's healthy, right? And you can do that by, being happy and healthy yourself. You could do it by having healthier options in the vending machines or in the cafeteria or at your meetings, right? You could look at there's different what I call active implementations, right? Which are things that were health screening. So these are any things where people are interacting with the people you bring in, right? It might be a health fair where you bring in tons of different, vendors and health practitioners where they can come talk to it. This is where you bring in people from your employee assistance programs or your health and wellness programs. And so they can meet and greet and do all these different things. Right? You could do something interactive. I talked earlier about the group that was going to the Grand Canyon. They have workouts regularly in their office during office hours. It could be you have people come in and do yoga, or you have somebody come in and do massages in the office, whatever the case may be. We can look at different passive things, right? Which are usually some sort of education based, right? We could be a lunch and learn. There'd be a workshop, some sort of retreat. It could be a webinar like you're on now. These are all things that you can implement at a whole time. You could just look at some sort of program. I know with Blueprint Health, we offer all these different things. We offer them in person. We offer them via webinar and all these different things. And with us, depending on the program, we do it free of charge or at extremely low fees because our values are letting people be healthy. There might be something that you need to cover. If you want to develop a health app for your company, we're not going to split the bill for it, but we're happy to help you do it. If there's all these different things, and you got to ask yourself, what is it I want to implement? What could I implement that will match the values and goals of our organization? Now, here's the key. Here's where the rubber meets the road. How to implement. First of all, any program you put together, you need to reward the process, not the results. I can't emphasize this enough. If people feel they're being judged on the results of a health program, they are going to run for the hills. I remember when I was in university many, many years ago, one of the organizations I worked with, it was a big office, and they had Weight Watchers come in. I think they came in at bi-weekly or once a month. And the problem was at the time, and I think they've changed their ways now because we're talking over a decade ago. They used to do weigh-ins at the office and things like that. And the people that were the most overweight were actually the least involved because they were embarrassed. They didn't want people to know their weight. They didn't want to know people to know how much they did. What you need to do is you need to reward the process, that people are making healthy decisions, that they're getting involved, that they're coming to a health program, that they're getting certified in something. These are all different things they want. You need to consider whether it's mandatory or not, right? So we talked about that example earlier where people were coming to the barbecue and eating the food. You can't control what people are thinking there, but you need to decide whether this is something that's going to be mandatory or not. If you want to make it mandatory, you still can't hold it against them if they're not engaged. People's health is their decision, so you can't, get personally involved whether or not they buy in or not. Right? You got to look at timing. I once got brought into a big organization, and they had a health and wellness week, and they brought everybody in. They had a different speaker every day for a lunch and learn, and it was like a 30 to 40 minute presentation every single day. I was on the fourth day, so the second last day, and up to that point, they had one person come, one person, and that was because it was their busy time of year, and people they didn't have a corporate environment designed to allow people to take the time at that time of year. There was deadlines. They had to beat it. They had to do it, right? So you got to look at it. Maybe one of my previous companies I worked with was Good Life. I actually worked at Good Life as well, as where I started my practice. They're a goal-based company, so on a month-to-month basis. So booking a wellness program at the end of a month was probably one of the worst things they could do because all their employees were so goal-oriented, they didn't care about anything but reaching their goals at the end of the month. Doing it mid-month was a perfect time because it wasn't the, get started, see what's going to happen. It wasn't the, oh gosh, we got to either hit our goals or blow away our goals. you got to look at the timing in either your quarter, your month, your site, whatever cycles you guys use. Right? You can team up. If you're a small organization with 3 employees, you might not be able to afford to bring in a single wellness program into your office. But I do a lot. I'm involved with the board of trade in my area quite extensively. We could get together 5, 10, 15 of us and do that. We're actually in the process right now of not negotiating, but working with a bunch of different chiropractic offices to come into one of our offices and run a CPR and first aid program, because that's becoming a requirement in our jurisdiction, right? So team up, whether it be team up within your departments or team up within your organizations. Right? You got to decide whether you're going to do it internally or outsource. This is like one of those questions that comes across everything in business. Do you outsource it or do you do it yourself? If you're going to do it yourself, you really need to make sure that you have people that know how to do this, right? I have spent, I like to say I started taking courses in health and wellness at 13 years old when I took the FIT program at the community center near my house so I could go work out. I've been spending my life at this. Do you have people that are able to really implement this, whether it be from a planning or implementation point of view? If you are a giant multi-billion-dollar multinational company, you might actually be able to hire a doc onto your team to do these things, right? You have to decide who's responsible, right? There was a great situation I had once where I met a gentleman who ran it was a different large insurance company in my area. And they had like 50, 60 employees or something of that nature. And he heard what we did and loved it. So he passed me along to his office manager. And he wanted to, dive in. We could do a lot of work together. But his office manager dealt with everything day to day, which is awesome. I love it. And I contacted her, and she pretty much said, "Yeah, no. You can contact us in the fall." And at that point, it was about 3.5, 4 months later. We currently have a block on any programs, any education things. We are too busy to deal with all this. And I don't know any of you, but whenever I've been told, follow up with me in 4 months. Following up they never follow up with me, and I rarely hear back from them, right? That's the reality of the situation. If they're not engaged and involved, it doesn't really go very far. And you got to decide who's responsible. So you had the owner or the CEO or president or whatever his title was wanting this idea, but his office manager was responsible. And there was a big disconnect between those things. Lastly, you need to commit. Whatever level of commitment you are willing to go to, whether that be a little bit, whether that be a lot, you've got to commit to it and you've got to own it. That is the reality. Whatever it is you want, again, there's nothing wrong with having no corporate wellness strategy. No corporate wellness strategy is a corporate wellness strategy. It's not one that's going to get a lot out for your employees and your team, but it's a strategy. It's a program. Whatever it is you want to do, you need to commit to it and have a plan to commit to it. Okay? That's the reality there. All right? So, what I'm going to do now is as we end off, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that got brought up or any questions you guys have. You need to bring health to the forefront. This is what I'm challenging you to do. Bring it to the forefront. If it's not, or assess whether it's at the forefront of your organization. And that organization can be anything, your organization at work, your family, your church, your community group. I challenge you to bring it to the forefront, right? These things can be involved in your family, your organization, your church. It doesn't matter. The principles are the same across the board, right? I challenge you to review your values as an organization and leader. Then review if from a health point of view, you are congruent with these. If you are, that is awesome. Keep it up. Decide your next steps and continue to be congruent and even elevate your game. Be a leader in your organization. Be a leader in your community. If you are not, what are you waiting for? Get congruent. Destruction will always follow at a level equal to your incongruency. Right? Regardless of your values around your regardless of what your values are around your personal and organizational health, you deserve to have congruency and you deserve to have healthy, happy employees. And however you want to do that, by paying them a lot or by bringing health and wellness programs into the program, by paying them a lot, we know money doesn't create happiness, but money will allow you to them to go do it for themselves is kind of what I was getting at. So I leave you with all that. Thank you very much, but I'm going to take some questions here and answer things. Okay, so the first question is related to the idea that, corporate wellness programs cost a lot. And I kind of addressed this a little bit, but it wasn't really a big part of the scope of this. I know for my organization, I do things at almost no cost. Right now, my local education programs are a huge part of my marketing, and it's the same in most of your communities. So you can go out and reach out to chiropractors and physios and personal trainers, nutritionists, dietitians, whatever the case may be, and most of them are willing to do a lot of work with you for free or for a very low fee. Myself, I would do most of my programs virtually at almost no cost or a very minimal cost, right? The reality is these don't have to be expensive. Your program doesn't necessarily have to be bringing in or running something. It could be just providing the resources. It could be having, a section of your office just dedicated to different practitioners where they have contact information or, links to their websites and webinars and different things of that nature. Does that make sense? If anyone else has any questions about that. Okay, so there's a question about what my fees are and all that. Like I said before, we have different fee structures and all those different things. But why don't you? I'll email you afterwards, and we'll deal with that there. Okay, so somebody just asked me there about liabilities. I've actually never really been asked about that too much. In my personal opinion, I don't think by offering anything in the office, you're really putting much of a liability on yourself. Any health practitioner is going to have their own insurance and malpractice for anything they do wrong. But obviously anyone can try to be litigious as they wish against you any way they want. But I can't see or have never heard of a situation where people are it's brought to the forefront or they get held liable for something that happens. Like if they bring in a nutrition program, the nutrition program gives them an eating disorder or something where they get brought there. Any other specific questions or concerns? Okay, so I just got a question there. I wanted to thank, that was from Jake. Jake, I'm going to message you afterwards. That really doesn't match up with the scope of this, so I don't want to keep people on the line for that. Okay. Any other programs? Yeah, so my website, actually I'll bring up my contact information here. So this is my office. That's my office phone, my cell phone, my email, and my office website. Feel free to get in contact with me anytime after this. Otherwise, all those of you that were on here, you're going to get some follow-up information with a survey asking you about how things went. Giving you some offers to consult with you and see what it is we can do to help you out. Anyways, thank you again, guys. I'm Dr. Christopher Small of Blueprint Health and Clarity Chiropractic. I want to congratulate you on taking the time to do this today. We kept it under 45 minutes, which was my goal. I tend to go over. So thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.